Joining me in the studio is Dr. Jessica Adambiri Agambela. He's a public policy analyst. He was also a member of the Professor Irama Committee. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and my greetings to your viewers.
Good to have you. First of all, briefly explain the constitutional requirement that the outgoing president fixes the emoluments for members of parliament, while the members of parliament also fix that for the president and the vice president as well.
Yes. Well, you know, the compensation of certain categories of people is contained in Article 71 of the Constitution. And Clause 1 of that, of Article 71 specifies the categories of people whose compensation will be determined by a committee of not more than 5 to be established by the president. And I don't know if you would permit me to refer to the specific parts of the Constitution. Yes, it says that the salaries and allowances payable and the facilities and privileges available to the Speaker and Deputy Speakers and members of Parliament, the Chief Justice and other justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, the Auditor General, the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of the Electoral Commission, the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice and his deputies, and the District Assembly's Common Fund Administrator, the Chairman, Vice Chairman, and the other members of the National Council for Higher Education, however described, the Public Services Commission, the National Media Commission, the Lands Commission, and the National Commission for Civic Education. All of their compensation is to be determined by this committee. Now, in Clause 2, it says, the salaries and allowances payable and the facilities available to the President, the Vice President, and the Chairman and the other members of the Council of State, Ministers of State, and Deputy Ministers, being expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund, shall be determined by Parliament.
Right, so that's stated in the Constitution.
Yes,
but in all seriousness and in fairness, don't you think this quantum of money is just too much? Indeed, President Mahama is on record to have said last year in 2015 that he wanted the support of Labour to help in abolishing the emoluments for Article 71 office holders, because it was that would require on the purse.
Yes, but to eliminate the president establishing a committee, which is the process we have now, because how are the salaries of the president and parliament and this category of workers, how is it to be determined? The Constitution says a committee set up by the president should do that, should determine how much should go to the executive and how much should go to the legislature and the other independent constitutional bodies, the leaders of the other independent constitutional bodies. Now you say, isn't the money too much? You said, right?
Right.
But I don't know how much the money is. How much is it? I don't know. I mean, if you know, I don't. But I know that historically, people have been aghast at the size, especially of the ESB. So until we see what the committee that President Mahama set up has recommended, I don't think is an appropriate time to question the amount.
Like you said, often in the past when it comes out, there's a lot of furore surrounding, you know, because people then begin to know the amounts that people are getting, the members of parliament, for instance. And there's a lot of public debate about it. How should the public be handling such issues?
I think part of the problem is that these matters are usually left to the last minute, and they seem to be rushed through. For instance, I mean, there's no reason why Parliament's consideration of how much the president and his ministers should get should not have been done much earlier. But it's now going to be done almost like in a rush. And of course, I mean, the committees are set up by the president, so they give their recommendations to the president as to what parliamentarians, etc., all of these people will receive.
Right.
And it is generally not made public. I think that it needs to be made public because it's not a theft. So why should you hide it? I believe that there ought to be a change so that the information is made public, but it's left to the president.
With your permission, let me just quickly quote to you what the president is reported to have said sometime last year. The president explained that the abolishment will pave way for a more efficient, independent commission that will be fair to all workers, notwithstanding their categories. He went further to state that we cannot continue to pay the current salaries for Article 71 office holders due to the pressure on the public purse. That's a moral argument, isn't it?
Well, the president said that. But to do that, you need to change the Constitution. And there was a Constitution Review Commission which recommended that an independent emoluments commission should be established to determine the compensation of all public sector workers, including the president.
So not limited to Article 71 office
Yes,
holders?
yes.
Right, okay.
So that the compensation of Article 71 office holders and everybody else who works for the public, it will be viewed
And that's where the issue of
holistically.
fairness and equity comes in.
Yes, yes, because right now I think the public is disturbed that the compensation for the Article 71 office holders seems to be
Skewed.
yes, and treated separately.
Right.
And yes, and seems to be excessive compared to the compensation of it. But what you ought to remember really is that there are heads of corporations whose salaries are probably higher than the president. You know, you look at some of the heads of the SOEs, whether it's Cocoa Board, Graphic, or Ghana National Gas Company, or GNPC. If you look at their salaries, I wouldn't be surprised if they're paid a monthly salary higher than that of the president.
Dr. Agambila, I've got to say a big thank you to you. Thanks very much for joining me in the studio. Dr. Agambila is a public policy analyst. He was also a member of the Professor Irama Ade Committee. Let's